Tristan, let's talk about the Eagles. They improved to 10-1 after my Bills, unfortunately, got defeated by them in overtime. 0-6 from Josh Allen. Thank you for that. Does the resiliency of the Eagles make them the favorite for the Super Bowl right now?
I think it has to. I don't love saying that. They beat up on my team last week, but it really does feel like this team just is in a zone. The other team that's scary is the 49ers. Okay, that's fair, and we're going to see that matchup this week, and I'm really excited about it. But the Eagles aren't playing their best football. They make a lot of mistakes. They'll be sloppy at times. A.J. Brown didn't have any yards in the Chiefs game, but they always just find a way to win. They do not stop fighting. They were kind of like that last year, but I feel even more so in 2023, that really feels like their identity. You can't kill this team. I mean, you better go up 20, and even that's not going to be enough because they're not going down easy. They just don't stop. In this game against Buffalo, Jalen Hurts was horrible in the first half. I think there was a point where he only completed like 2 passes or something. He was atrocious. He didn't show up, and by the end of the game, he had 200 yards, like 4 touchdowns. He came out and balled in the second half. They clawed their way back into it and ultimately won the game in overtime. I didn't know I could be even more impressed with this team, but I am, because despite all the mistakes, despite the slip-ups, despite them going down, letting teams get up on them, it's not like last year where they wouldn't put teams away. It's almost like they're slow going, but the fact that they can fight back, they've only lost 1 game, and they just beat the Chiefs and the Bills back-to-back, and the Bills put up a valiant effort. How could you not view this team as the favorite? They have to be right now.
They were my preseason pick to make the Super Bowl, and it seems like I'm on the right track for them. I think this team it really brings back the old story of the tortoise and the hare, right? Like, they are the tortoise. They're the ones that they're going to be slow and steady throughout the whole game. They may look bad at times. They may look like the slowest, but they're going to eventually win that race and cross the finish line first. And that's just how this team rolls. And they even at the end of this game, they had an opportunity to let the Bills win with, I think, 2 false starts from Kelsey.
Right.
And yet they still managed to pull out a field goal, a miraculous field goal, by the way, in those conditions, and put it into overtime and win the game. And I told you when we went to overtime, I didn't think the Bills were going to win because that's just how that record stands with the Bills in overtime with Josh Allen. But look, Jalen Hurts has that dog in him, and if he believes as much as he can squat, then this team can go for a long, long time and probably make the Super Bowl and likely win it.
The Hurts has that factor similar to Mahomes, the Brady thing, the clutch moment. That when it comes down to the wire, he's not going to let you get blown out. He's not going to go down without swinging. Like, if you've got Jalen Hurts, you're going to have a chance in the football game. And it's crazy, people who have followed Jalen Hurts' career, to see him reach this moment, reach this pinnacle of success. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League. Him and Devontae Smith, the last 2 weeks, Devontae Smith has easily eclipsed A.J. Brown as the number 1 there. I'm not saying he is. You know how much I love him, but Devontae Smith had 106 yards today. And the other unsung hero for the Eagles is Swift. Because how many big runs did he break open the past 2 weeks? In the Chiefs game, it was Swift in the second half that really broke the game open for the Eagles. They couldn't get any momentum, and he finally kind of swung the game, and he did the same thing for the Eagles today against the Bills.
He got them into the red zone to
right.
allow Hurts to make the game-winning touchdown.
Right.
And it was he just walked right into the end zone, pretty much untouched. Like,
yes.
Yeah, they nudged him at the goal line, but let's be real, nothing was going to stop him from getting into that end zone. So, look, kudos to the Eagles. I'm glad they won. I like the Eagles. I really do. I like the team. I like Jalen Hurts. You and I are probably closer to his story than most people, just because we are located in Alabama where he played before he went to Oklahoma, and that was the thing that changed his complete career, and it was the best thing that could have happened to him.
No doubt. And they've got so many playmakers besides him, offensively, defensively, and the kicker, Nick Folk, to hit that 59-yarder, I think it was 59 yards, with that rain, in those conditions. I assumed it was a miss. I was like, well, this is basically a Hail Mary at this point, and he nailed it. and then to go on defense first in overtime, no problem. They still win the game. They got the best shot from the Bills, and they were able to hang in and win it 37-34. This team, man, the only team I think that can beat them is the 49ers, and we're going to get our answer to that next week. I'm so excited. Can't wait to talk about that football game. All right, Ryan, we talked about the Eagles, the winner of this game. Let's talk about your team. Let's talk about the Buffalo Bills. They showed up. They punched Philly in the mouth, came up just short. They lost 34-37. They fall to, 6-6 now. They needed this win, but man, I liked what I saw from that team today. It felt like a different Bills team. I defer to you. Could they still make a playoff run, or did they have to have this win?
I think this win would have pushed them into, it would have pushed them into the playoff, but also it would have been that fire that needed to be ignited. And they played like they had that fire all game long. And it was just that dumb Bills luck, man. And I told you before the episode started, this whole week, you wanted to talk about the game and I didn't. And the reason is because I'm just tired of getting my hopes up as a Bills fan. And it just seems to happen like this for the Bills when they have the game won. I know they're going up against what we think is probably the best team in the NFL currently.
Sure.
And they went toe-to-toe with them. That's fantastic.
You're up 17-7 at halftime. You're in control of the game.
That's great. But if we hadn't got so close this time like we have the past 4 years, then I wouldn't be so upset. Right now, I'm just so neutral on things. I expected this to happen. I thought for a second how we were playing, we were surely going to win because, we were steamrolling the Eagles. The score never really looked like that, but just gameplay, we were handling them.
The Eagles couldn't do anything offensively in the first half. They couldn't move the ball.
No, they couldn't. And we had a little bit of red zone trouble or getting to the red zone, but ultimately, if you look at gameplay, time of possession, everything, we smothered the Eagles. When it went into overtime, when they got that kick, I was like, okay, well, this is it. And I think I even messaged you and was hey, well, the Bills are going to lose this because that's not only because Allen's now 0-6 in overtimes, in all the overtime games he's ever been in, it seems to really matter. And I think this one mattered not necessarily in the AFC as much, but it mattered because I think this was like that final blow to the Bills where the rest of the season is just going to be kind of mediocre at best.
Right.
And I don't think they have. I think they've got so close, and they're like, man, we've tried this so many times, and we're just exhausted. Not just
you
physically.
Think this loss kind of demoralized them?
Yeah, it took the wind out of them.
Interesting.
Not only physically because they played a hard-fought game today. This was probably the top 3 games of the entire NFL season so far.
Oh, without a doubt.
Maybe the best, but
yeah.
That's just the Bills story, man. And I think until there's a change from top down, you're not going to see anything different, unfortunately.
Okay. They've got the bye now, though. And then they head to Kansas City. Obviously, if they won out, they'd be 11-6. They could still make the playoffs. It's totally on the table.
Went out against the Chiefs, the Cowboys, the Chargers, the Patriots, and the Dolphins.
3 of those games are tough.
Right.
3 of those games are tough. Do you think if they had won this game, gone into the bye week, beaten Philly, then you have a more realistic chance of running the table or something because you feel better? But
yeah, so the fire would have been starting, and then we win the game tonight, and the fire's ignited, and then it just keep adding wood to the fire for the rest of the season. I think that's kind of how it would have played out. But now that we fought this hard and came up with the loss, I just don't think the guys on the team, they're going to keep playing football, and they may win out. They may win 4 of the next 5. I don't know. But at this point, I don't think it matters. I don't think the Bills have any shot in the playoffs. I know technically they're still in the hunt, and things could fall their way, but I don't think by their own might and power that they're going to make it. I think it would be dumb luck from other teams losing. Well,
any team, even asking the Eagles to go beat Chiefs, Cowboys, Dolphins, and then throw in the Chargers and Patriots. That's a tough stretch.
2 of those are divisional games too. So
exactly,
the Patriots and the Dolphins at the end of the year.
Exactly. It's going to be tough. I think they're going to give Kansas City a fight. I'm interested to see what they do with Dallas. Real quick, just to touch on the game, I thought it kind of swung in a couple key areas. One, you touched on time of possession. Bills had 40 minutes and the Eagles had like 26. So that to me just proves time of possession isn't an important stat anymore. I think it was 5 or 6 years ago. I think now it doesn't matter. I think with these quarterbacks we have, with these offenses, they can strike at any moment. It doesn't matter if you've only got the ball 26 minutes, right? If you've got a good defense, it's kind of irrelevant. I mean, you could say it minimizes your opportunities, but not really, not in this case. But the stat for me is Bills had 11 penalties for 80 yards. That is a lot in a big game like this. We could discuss some of the questionable referee calls. There were multiple. There were multiple. But regardless, 11 penalties, I think that's just a little sloppy. And it was kind of a sloppy game from both teams. But if I have to find a distinction point, that's really it. And just the fact that Josh Allen and Gabe Davis didn't hook up on that throw in overtime. They had it right there. The game was to be won, and it just slipped through their hands.
Yep, like usual. You mentioned time of possession, and, the Bills had the ball much longer than the Eagles. However, they were only in the red zone one more time than the Eagles.
Yeah, so exactly.
That's where our problems lied was, we could drive downfield, and then we'd get stopped, stood up, and couldn't make it into the red zone and score. And then the Eagles, they're 4 times in the red zone. They were 100%. So we just didn't capitalize like we needed to. We didn't do the things we needed to keep the Eagles off of us and keep the score at a one possession lead.
Mm-hmm.
We just kept letting them crawl back in, and that's once that field goal went through the uprights, he could have backed up 10 more yards and made it.
Probably, yeah. It was he was money.
Yeah.
And then the great drive in overtime, and it just ends with the overthrow. We don't know if that's Davis, if that's Allen. We don't know unless we're there, but it's brutal, and it's a tough loss. And this game kind of surmises the Bills' season, doesn't it? It's like so much potential, so much talent, so much hope.
For the past
and it's
4
like
years.
You said, you get your hopes up, and then it just kind of falls apart in the last moment. That has been the Bills under Sean McDermott. That's just facts.
Yep. Every playoff appearance, every Kansas City overtime game, every Philadelphia Eagle overtime game. It's just you think, man, we got it together. We got it together, and then luck just plays a certain part in it, and it never falls on the Bills' side.
Yeah, I don't think. I think you're right. I think it's more than that, though. I think a lot of it too is a mindset, and it's clear. I think to you, to me, to everyone, the best days of the Sean McDermott era are long behind us. I mean, we have passed the best, and now we're looking at old yearbook photos trying to reminisce and feel good about the past. You don't want to be in that position. I think it is obvious, if it wasn't already, even though they played great, I think it's wholesale changes at the end of the season. I
do think, however, the offensive changes has helped. I do think the past 2 weeks they do look more put together on offense, and they're running the ball more and more efficiently, and they're using Allen how he should be used, I think.
Right.
And they're letting him run.
Joe Brady's doing a great job. The play calling is significantly better than Ken Dorsey. It just is.
Yeah, I mean, it's 10 to the 10th degree. But I'm starting a campaign that is going to be bring Daboll back. I want Daboll as the head coach. I'm going out on a limb here, and I know people may not agree with me, and I know this probably will never happen. But I believe that the Bills played the best when Daboll was the offensive coordinator. He's proven he can be a really good head coach. I want him at the Bills.
Oh, I think that would be amazing. I would offer him whatever he wanted. I would try. Even if I had to give up a draft pick, I don't care. I would try to go get him because your quarterback performed when he was your offensive coordinator. The Detroit Lions lost to Green Bay on their Thanksgiving Day game, 29-22. Simple question. Are we worried about the Lions after this loss?
So the question we really got to ask is this one of the games where, like, the Chiefs lost to the Broncos, where it was just one of those weird games? To me, it looked like the Packers were playing on a different level than they had been all year. I mean, they were firing on all cylinders. And, Detroit has a way of losing games where you think that they should be in, or at least fighting. I mean, they lost to the Ravens without scoring a touchdown. So they lose these games where you're like, well, what are we doing? Like, how do you have such a high-powered offense and then you come out and you perform like this? Really, the whole story of the game this time was just the turnovers. When I got to my family Thanksgiving, Goff had 3 turnovers, and it wasn't even, I think, third or fourth quarter at the time. So I think that was kind of the story of the game over the past couple of weeks. Like the Lions have just looked like a little bit different team. I'm not saying that we should panic. I'm not hitting the fire alarm right now, but I am saying that they need to fix some things going into the latter part of this schedule because they have a few tough games coming up.
Right.
With the likes of the Cowboys. I think they play the Vikings twice.
And those Vikings games are important because the Vikings are in it. They're in the division. I mean, like
they sure are.
This is not locked up for Detroit. I love what you said at the beginning. You said we have to ask ourselves, is this one of those, I hate to use the word, but almost fluky games like Kansas City losing to Indianapolis last year, like teams do, or is this something different? I don't think it is that. And if it is, I'm still concerned because of one key issue. And this is my main note for this game. The Packers harassed and brutalized Jared Goff all game long. The Packers' defensive line wrecked Detroit. They absolutely wrecked them. Jared Goff had no time to throw, and then when he did have time to throw, he was so worried and gun-shy from getting hit all day long. Yeah, I mean, they had 3 lost fumbles. He only got sacked 3 times. I bet he got hit 23. I mean, That's what worries me. A Packers team who has been, mediocre up and down, for them to come in there and physically dominate Detroit at home in a primetime Thanksgiving slot, you're the only game on, that's what worries me. If they had just lost this game, I'm not freaking out, but the fact that they were physically dominated in the trenches, sorry, I'm worried about that.
Well, you had mentioned, you'd brought up when we were texting back and forth on Thanksgiving Day, I think you had said that this is another Miami team. And I think you're a little correct on that because, when Miami plays a team that can dominate the offensive line and get pressure on Tua and Jared Goff are not the guys like Allen, Mahomes, Hurts, where they can escape Lamar Jackson, make a play, make one of those unbelievable plays that extend the play out for 30 seconds. And
they have to operate within the system, and they can be successful doing so.
You give them a script, and they'll follow it the best anybody could. But you ask them to go outside of that and come up with their own thing on the fly, they're just not capable. And if the Cowboys, they play the Cowboys at home in a primetime slot on a Saturday this season. I think it's their week 16.
They play in Dallas, yeah.
Yeah, they play the Cowboys at home for Dallas. I should say that way. But you mean to tell me the Lions are going to go in there in Dallas at primetime and defeat them? I just don't see it happening.
Yeah. That's what I'm starting to get worried about.
That's just one game I'm pulling out, right?
I know.
I don't think they beat the Vikings twice. They may beat them once. They may split that, but and then look, they also got the Broncos before they start the Vikings, Cowboys, Vikings again, little run, and the Broncos look like a totally different team too. So the Lions have a tough schedule heading into the last part of this season.
Since that Ravens loss, they had the Raiders game, which was weird, but they won, okay. But then they beat the Chargers 41-38. That was a close one. They went down to the Bears. They came back, won it 31-26. I felt kind of good about them after that game because it showed that they could come back, even though it is the Bears. And then you have this game against the Packers where the score's close, but the game wasn't close. Anyone who watched the game, the Packers controlled it from start to finish. The Lions were down 2 scores the majority of the game, and they just got beat up. I'm just saying, if the Packers physically dominate you, to your point, you don't think the Cowboys are going to?
Yeah.
The Saints? You don't think that Saints defense is going to give you trouble? The Broncos defense, the way it's playing, this is not a cakewalk, and they have to hope this was a one-off. Maybe they ate Thanksgiving breakfast that morning and weren't ready for the game, but they can't have this kind of performance again if they want to be a legit Super Bowl contender.
You're absolutely right. And I'm just saying, there's a chance that they lose more games than they should, and there's a chance that these other teams in their division, like the Vikings and the Packers, win games that they shouldn't. But when you look at the strength of schedule for the rest of the season, just take the Packers. They play the Chiefs next week, which is going to be hard. So, yeah, say they lose that one, right? But then they get the Giants, the Bucks, the Panthers, the Vikings, and the Bears. Those are all winnable games if the Packers keep playing like they did against Detroit because, you see Jordan Love and Watson and Jaden Reed. They're all connecting now. Unlike they have the majority of the season, they could go on a little hot streak here and seat themselves in the playoffs somehow. Now, that's a far shot. I'm not saying that'll happen, but I'm just saying it's on the table if the Lions keep falling to these teams that they need to beat to be able to control their destiny.
There's still 6 weeks left. Anything can happen in 6 weeks. The entire playoff field can totally flip.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I'm saying. Look, I'm walking this out how it could happen, because if you asked me 2-3 weeks ago to walk out the rest of Detroit's schedule and how they wind up not in the playoffs or not at least the winner of that division, I would be hard-pressed to do so. Okay, yeah, they got the Packers. They'll win that one. They got this team. They got this team. The way they looked on Thanksgiving Day, it changes my outlook, and now I can actually sit down and say, oh, well, here's how they could actually wind up not winning the division. You know, the Vikings could have a hot streak. The Packers could have a hot streak, and they could push Detroit out or into a wild card slot. So anything's possible, like you said.
Yeah, they've got to figure things out, because even though they've got a lot of wins, it's just that kind of performance, especially in that moment when all eyes are on you, it's not acceptable. That's what I wondered. Would the stage be too bright for Detroit this year? I hope that's not the case, but I'm getting concerned. I'm definitely concerned as we head into next week. We'll see how they handle it moving forward.
Tristan, let's talk about the Broncos. They defeated the Browns this week to win not their second, not their third, not their fourth, but their fifth game in a row. Is it time to start viewing them as an actual playoff team? What say you?
Yes.
All right. Well, that's it. Thank you for joining us today.
Have a good one, guys. Happy Thanksgiving.
It was nice to join you with this fireside chat.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's crazy. Didn't think we'd be here. How can they not be right now? First off, the teams they beat. The fact that they beat the Chiefs, beat the Bills back-to-back. We thought maybe the Browns were going to bring them down to average. I can't even find the words. I'm so flustered. We thought DTR would go in there and maybe, do enough. That Browns defense let Denver hang 29 on them. And this is another game. It really wasn't ever close. Denver kind of controlled the whole football game. This is the thing. Do I think I wouldn't bet money they're going to make the playoffs. I wouldn't bet money they're going to win a playoff game, but I wouldn't bet money they're not. Right now, they're 6-5. They have flipped their season around. There's still a lot of games to go. I mean, they could, if they won out, they'd have 12 wins on the season. Okay. Here is the thing for me. The Denver Broncos defense is legit. Since week 6, Ryan, the Broncos defense is only allowing 16.5 points per game. If they had been doing that all season, that would put them in the top 4 or 5 defenses in the league. So since week 6, when the Jets hung like 30 on them, it was, the absolute bottom of the cliff. They have climbed out of the wreckage like Christian Bale in The Dark Knight Rises. They have scaled it. They have returned to Gotham, and they're going to stop the city from blowing up because they're only giving up 16 points a game. And I can't believe that. The team that let Miami hang 70 on them, now you're lucky if you score 15. I mean, the Chiefs couldn't get half a dozen on them. It's unbelievable. This is a legit team. To top it off, they've got one of the best turnover differentials in the league. They're +6. They're creating turnovers. They're opportunistic. Even today, they had a couple turnovers. Like the Cleveland Browns lost 3 fumbles, okay? 3 turnovers. Sean Payton simplified things. He said that. He said on defense, we were getting too cute. We were worrying about schemes. And I told him, guys, hey, let's simplify things and just go play football. It's amazing what happens when you do that because they've got talent and I wouldn't want to play them. They scare me. It's ugly, but they're good.
They're very good. The Broncos defense is back to what it was, the first part of last season because it was a really good defense. And
right.
We've been wondering what happened. Sean Payton has turned everything around. He's turned Russell Wilson around. He's turned the receivers around. Every aspect of this team looks different than it did in the first part of the season. Looks like a completely
It just happened later than we thought it would.
It did. They were late bloomers, They were just late bloomers. They were like the Bengals of last year.
Ryan, we're talking about a team in the National Football League that had 70 points put on them.
Yeah.
In a national football game.
Look, when you're embarrassed that bad, the only way you can go is up, right?
But that speaks to them. Really, I don't want to gloss over that. You said the only way you can go is up. That's not really true, though, because after that game, it would be so easy to just phone it in and be like, dude, we are the embarrassment of the league. We're going to be a stat for the rest of time. I can't even look at my teammates in the face. Why are we even trying? The fact that Peyton didn't lose the locker room, that he got them all to buy in and turn it around and go on a 5-game winning streak that included beating the Chiefs and the Bills, it might be the most impressive coaching job of the season. I'm not exaggerating.
Yeah, I think it's got to be. So far, we'll see how the rest of the year goes. But
sure, it could collapse. But right now, the Broncos could easily find themselves in a wild card spot. If we look at the rest of their schedule, so they just beat Cleveland. They go to Houston next week. That's going to be a hell of a game. Who would have thought 4 weeks ago Denver and Houston would be one we're all going to be watching, but right. I know I'll have my TV on it. Then they've got the Chargers, and then they go to Detroit. 3 straight road games. All of those are going to be difficult. If they win 2 of those, well, I feel really good about this team making the playoffs, because then you got the Patriots, Chargers again, and the Raiders. And I think they can beat any of those teams. Like, I wouldn't even say Houston or Detroit could beat them right now. Denver can win any game they play. They remind me a lot of Pittsburgh. Sean Payton has kind of turned them into what Mike Tomlin does with the Steelers. It's ugly. It's not fun to watch. If you're trying to get your friend into football, you're not going to say, hey, come sit over and watch this Denver Broncos game. You're going to flip the channel as fast as you can and hope he didn't see it, like you were watching a dirty movie in the hotel room. But they're winning games, and that's all that matters. Doesn't matter how ugly it is. Doesn't matter. It's not a beauty contest. They're winning football games, and they're physical, they're mean, they're tough, and they don't quit, and they're well coached. And as you said, he's turned Russell Wilson around. He's still not what he was, but he does look like the old Russell Wilson again. Cortland Sutton, one of the most clutch wide receivers over the past 6 weeks. I just can't tell you how impressed I am. They could win all of these games.
And I want to backtrack about what I said about the Broncos about 3 weeks ago. When they won against the Packers to start this 5-game win streak, I was like, okay, they won against the Packers. Most people could do that. Well, then they came in and won against the Chiefs. I was like, okay, fluke game for the Chiefs, right? Had the bye week. They come back and beat my Bills. And then I was like, oh, okay. So this is actually a good team now. Once they beat the Bills, I was like, this isn't just luck now. This is the actual talented, rejuvenated, reconfigured offense and defense, and a completely restructured team. So I think this team, going into the bye week, I thought that they were not what the score said they were. And now I'm a firm believer that the Broncos are riding through the rest of the season. If they win out, which is going to be very difficult, I don't think they will, because they also have 3 divisional games in the next 6 weeks. But if they win 4 of those 6, they're an honest contender. If we saw them,
I think you have to win 4. I think
that's
to even have
the
a shot,
number,
you got to
right?
win 4, because that'd put you at 10 wins, and even that's not a guarantee to make the playoffs in the AFC. So you got to win 4 of the next 6 minimum.
But if I saw that the Broncos made it in as a wild card now, I'd be like, okay, yeah, I can believe that. You told me that at week 5, I would have laughed right in your face.
And if they make it in, don't think they can't win a playoff game.
Oh, look,
I don't care who they're playing.
If the Broncos make it in, it's going to be the Cinderella story. Like, watch out for them. I think they even get better in the playoffs.
I think you're right. I'm glad we're on the same page, because the rest of the AFC, you're kind of hoping they don't make the playoffs the way they're playing right now. Because if they make it, I know I wouldn't want to play them in the first round.
Yeah, so as it stands right now, obviously you got Kansas City, Jacksonville, Miami, and Baltimore in the top 4 of the AFC standings. And then you have Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Indianapolis, Houston at 8, and then Broncos at 9. The Bills
2 spots out.
The Bills fall to 10 after their loss against the Eagles. So look, I mean, the path is there. It's just if the Broncos want to take it or not.
Absolutely. It is theirs for the taking. That's a perfect way to put it. All right. Thank you guys for listening. We appreciate all of your support. We'll be with you next Monday to recap all of the Week 13 action. We are closing in on the playoffs. Ryan, thank you as always, my friend. We'll see you guys next week. Be safe, everyone.